Japanese manga first made its way to the US in association with anime in the 1980s and 1990s, but increasingly on its own merits. If you go to any Barnes & Noble now, you will see a huge manga selection to peruse and look through. And Star Wars is no stranger to manga. MediaWorks adapted the original trilogy and The Phantom Menace into manga form from 1996 to 1999. Tokyo Pop issued 2 manga one-shots in the vein of Star Wars Tales in 2005 and 2006. And the new canon has brought us multiple manga adaptations of everything from Claudia Gray's Lost Stars to the animated TV show Rebels. And now the High Republic has its own manga as well, The Edge of Balance, written by Shima Shinya and Justina Ireland, and illustrated by Mizuki Sakakibara. Volume 1 came out in September of 2021. Volume 2 is due out in May of 2022, but my library just got a copy of it, so I'm finally able to read it. So, a brief summary. In the aftermath of the Great Hyperspace Disaster, young Jedi Knight Lily Tora-Asi is assigned to Banchi to help settle displaced civilians far in the Outer Rim. While balancing the settlement of the civilians on Banchi with her Jedi duties, Lily must face off against the Drengir, and danger is lurking far closer than she could have possibly imagined. So first, the good. I really enjoyed Sakakibara's artwork here. I thought it was really well-fitting to the Star Wars universe. I liked getting to see the fights a little that we got to see, but I also liked, for the most part, how the characters were portrayed and how the world was portrayed. I think definitely here, if you like that manga-style artwork, you will like The Edge of Balance because it looks very much like a manga. They just have a very distinct style to me. And though Volume 1 is mostly set up, I did like what we got to see of Lily's character. Like a lot of Jedi in the High Republic era, she's trying to figure out her role within the Jedi Order, how to balance the demands on her time, but also how to approach the Force, the younger Jedi she comes in contact with, and the non-Force sensitive civilians around her. But on the meh front, not a lot happened here. Like I said, it did feel like setting up the temple on Banchi, the civilians who've settled there, Lily, her Padawan Kieran, the younglings Nima and Vivnia, and then Master Arkoff, the Wookiee Jedi who's assigned there. And so there wasn't a lot of action other than towards the end, Lily and the rest of the Jedi facing off against this Drengir attack. And I wondered how much of the setup was necessary. I guess if you are a reader coming to the Edge of Balance, unfamiliar with the rest of the High Republic series, this does explain things for you and set things up, but I would expect that most people who are reading the Edge of Balance manga have read maybe the young adult books or the adult books or the comics, and so I felt like maybe the slow pace and all the setup involved was not as necessary. And while I did really like Sakakibara's art, there were some things that I wasn't as crazy about. Mainly, Lily looks very young. She is described as a young Jedi Knight, but we don't get anything like we do with Vernestra Rwoh in the books, where we're told that she's the youngest knight in generations and she's only 16 or 17. So I'm expecting that Lily is older than Vernestra, but I think partially because of that manga art style, she honestly looked like a teenager most of the time. And I think being surrounded by a Padawan and by younglings who don't look that much younger than her, the only way you can really judge they're younger is that they're shorter, was one area where I had questions. I also thought that the writing for Master Arkoff was a little clunky. I always liked in the movies how Chewbacca interacts with everyone around him, because we don't get straight up translations of what he's saying. The characters don't repeat back what he says. Han knows what he says, and they carry on a conversation without us really getting Chewbacca's side. We infer it through his facial expressions and his attitude, less than the words he speaks. But here, Master Arkoff would say something, and Lily would say, yes, I agree with you. The civilians need to be settled. Or she would think in his head, Master Arkoff is right. I need to focus on this. And it just felt really clunky to me, that I would have rather that what the Wookiee Jedi said was just automatically assumed by those around him because they can understand Wookiee speak, and not repeated over and over again. And finally, this is a pedantic digression. Felt very much in the vein of Old Man Yells at Cloud, but I found it very jarring that The Edge of Balance is sold as a Star Wars manga. It's published by Viz Media, who publish loads of manga. But you don't read it from right to left, you read it like English comics from left to right. And that makes sense because it wasn't written in Japanese and then translated into English. It was written in English. So it makes sense that you would read it like a regular comic book. And even a lot of the early comic books to American audiences, I'm thinking of the Tokyo Pop editions of Sailor Moon, had the pictures mirrored so that you would read it from left to right. But I guess I'm so used to manga now being presented as they are in Japan from right to left, and that even when you translate into English, you still read it, the opposite way, that there were a few times that I almost felt thrown with The Edge of Balance, where my muscle memory wanted to start like this, but the book actually goes like a normal comic book, like this. So, in short, The Edge of Balance features a lot of really nice artwork. I think that the manga style works with Star Wars very well. The writing, though, was much weaker for me. This just felt like setup for the story to continue. And while we got somewhat of a grasp of Lily's character, the other Jedi she interacts with are much more nebulous at this point. But if you like manga and you've been enjoying the High Republic series so far, I would say definitely check out Volume 1 and check out Volume 2 once it comes out in May. I'm hopeful that Volume 2 will feature a lot more action and a lot more excitement that I felt like this first issue was missing.